and thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about why Aldi needs to be entering the Canadian market. With us today is Tiffany, myself, Jasmine, and Jaden. So today we're going to cover who's Aldi, why are they successful, what does the environment look like for them in the Canadian market, and what should their strategy be when looking at product, pricing, and marketing. So let's start off. Aldi has been established since 1962. They have over 2,000 stores in 10 countries, which you can see here on the left. And they primarily focus on no-frills grocery shopping, and they provide unique label product and lower prices. And they have a great expansion uh, target and goals over the next couple of years. And this is why we're going to be going into the Canadian market.
In our situational analysis and research, Canada has an open economy and stable political environment. However, recent trade policies include tariffs on consumer goods. With a significant rise in Instacart same day, Aldi must consider integrating e-commerce capabilities as well as mobile apps and click-to-collect services.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now, let's look at the competition. When it comes to Aldi entering into Canadian market, they really require a good competitive analysis. So the major competitors here are Food Basics, No Frills, and Walmart. So we really need to consider a number of things. What do we have in common? They're all low pricing. They all have existing partnerships across the country. They have a number of stores, but something that they also face amongst the three of us or four of us is the economic issues that there's a lot of uncertainty and we're not quite sure how that would impact expanding out into this market. And on the next slide, we're going to cover the Porter's facts, five Porter forces. So while Aldi faces challenges in terms of capital requirements and supplier bargaining power in the Canadian market, we really do have a strong business model and a number of existing supplier relationships in the US. And the potential to attract price sensitive consumers really provides a competitive advantage in the Canadian market, considering the economy. Now, Aldi really should adopt a phased approach when it starts to going into the market and looking into stores like London, which Tiffany will dive into a little bit more. And when it comes to our next slide,
in the environmental scan customer analysis, Aldi is really targeting customers who are budget conscious, but still prioritize the quality of the products that they use. Aldi provides an attractive option for shoppers mindful of their budget, focusing on value, quality, and unique shopping experiences. In the environmental scan pestle analysis, political considerations or tariffs on American and Canadian imports and exports. The economic considerations would be increased competition that can actually help reduce food inflation. Socially speaking, Canadians are starting to prioritize low-cost sustainable choices. Technologically speaking, Canada is investing in infrastructure that will actually strengthen supply chain operations. And in the environmental factors, Canadians are prioritizing businesses that practice sustainable sourcing and packaging. Legal-wise, there are protocols for food safety as well as strict labeling in Canada, namely with respect to English and French being present on packaging.
Thank you, Tiffany. We'll talk a little bit about the SWOT analysis here. So efficient pricing, of course, one of Aldi's strengths. It's very attractive to people who are feeling the effects of inflation. And of course, in Canada, that's a pretty prevalent thing at the moment. If they can lower prices further, they may be able to undercut the competition and attract more customers. They also have private label brands. They offer a lot of no-name branded products, and these are designed to meet the needs of the nationally branded products for a fraction of the cost. This is done through private label purchases. The weakness is limited selection of product, and this, of course, keeps prices down, but it might drive away customers who are looking for a more wide selection. Of course, that's not really what Aldi is trying to achieve, so it may end up being a strength in the end. They also have a cart system, not uncommon for grocery stores, but they will need to increase the price of the cart system in order for it to be effective in Canada. Right now, it's $0.25, and it should be about $1 here. Opportunities, they could really benefit from the use of a points program. They do have an app, but they don't really use it for CRM in that sense. This program could offer so much more insight in terms of spending, repeat purchases, time of day that people do their groceries, and so on. They also could allow their sustainability guidelines to be marketed a little bit more. They don't often market that at all, and they have great sustainability goals, environmentally conscious goals, and so on. Threats, market saturation, of course, as we spoke about, and we'll speak about a little bit later on as well, is a big problem. It's no doubt that Aldi will be entering into a highly competitive market. The government of Canada in 2024, however, says that Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro face less competition from standalone grocery store chains, so it might actually be a great time for Aldi to enter the Canadian market. And of course, economic instability is one of the threats as well. Of course, we're going down to a considerable amount, so it would be the purchasing power of the consumer is going to be sort of reduced. But time and time again, as the economic pressure sort of comes in, grocery stores are seeing more and more purchases, especially the kind of grocery store that Aldi is. Moving on to the market entry strategy. So in exporting, we have a few options. We can do direct exports, which allow companies to sell directly to a foreign market without a third party involved. Indirect exports are the same thing. They just do include a third party to sort of officiate the goods of sales. And the sale of goods, and then cooperative exports, which are a partnership between two different companies that use distribution channels. Moving on to franchising. Franchising allows the company to outsource the operation to franchisees, and these franchisees own and operate their own store under the original brand name of the corporation. In our case, would be Aldi, and they would have more control by doing that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Wholly owned subsidiaries now. A wholly owned subsidiary is like a parent company in which there are two methods of entry, a greenfield entry and a brownfield entry. Greenfield entry is creating a subsidiary from the ground up, almost like building a new business from the ground up, which is what we would be doing. Brownfield entry is buying already existing businesses and managing them. So the question is, how should we enter the market? Aldi should select on the franchising front here. Aldi likes to focus on the customer, and by franchising, all the local owners will have local knowledge of the area and its demographics, which will hopefully increase sales. And this will allow for faster expansion after the test market in London, which we'll also talk about a little bit later on. While there could be a chance of decreased quality in service and product, Aldi's business model provides less margin for error there.
Thank you, Jaden. So, as we mentioned, Aldi is a discount grocery store and they fall into the shopping products category. Now, despite being at the maturity stage of the product life cycle, they're really continuing to grow rapidly. Again, that's why them trying to get into the Canadian market. Now, what they need to focus on to be successful is that understanding that Canadians are struggling to afford groceries, grocery prices are expected to rise faster than inflation, and that they need to do the research to make sure that their price points fit the needs of the Canadian market because they are the ones who value this pricing and they value having selection in a certain kind of service. And this is something that they can implement and consider when going into the first flagship store. Now, when it comes to pricing, again, to be successful, it's mirroring what's being done in Europe. So that's maintaining consistently low prices, emphasizing of private labels, and considering what is different for the Canadian market. So language, location, and Tiffany will actually dive more into that.
All right, so the marketing mix place, we've chosen a direct channel strategy with a standalone brick and mortar store alongside a partnership with Instacart. Aldi could also consider London, Ontario as a test market for their Canadian operations. The marketing mix promotion, we want to leverage digital marketing and e-commerce platforms offering private label brands, engage in community-centric public relations, as well as implement in-store promotions and loyalty programs. The implementation plan for Aldi's expansion is structured to take 10 to 14 months, covering key aspects such as market research, legal compliance, supply chain logistics, hiring, marketing, and store setup leading up to the grand opening of the very first store in the Canadian market. This concludes Aldi's Canadian market entry strategy. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions.